Hello, everybody. It is your Professor Rocco, your boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this class, we're going to be a bit more informal. I'm going to be floating a floating head and shoulders and you know side of beef here on this chalkboard. And if you look above me, whew, beauty of a green screen. I'm getting better at this. We are going to be doing a Rocco rant. So, I have a philosophy that I teach when I was doing one-on-one coaching with people, when I worked with different discords and communities to teach players, when I'm with my local gaming clubs whenever I've been a part of, where my main strategy and how I play the game, and honestly any army can do this for real, is I like to counterpunch. Now, what does that mean? It means that I build my armies and lists with the idea in mind that when my opponent makes a move, I am reactionary to it. If I'm given first turn, I'll move my screens as far forward as they need to, usually just to toe tap an objective, be like one model on an objective, and I will shift the rest of my army back a couple inches, just to make sure that my opponent, when they get the turn, if they can even charge something, it's a screen. And then, and if we go back to all of the list building videos I've done, like how to build a better list, how, put them in the AoS, pretty sure there were master classes on that. I'll put the thing in the cards, probably a bit before this talk, is I build lists with multiple units that, again, I define as screens or chaff, that are just, in general, expendable. They're there to die so that my hammer units, also known as the units that do all my damage, can live until I can use them. I need to force my opponent to come out of their deployment zone or whatever, wherever they are, and split them up into manageable bite-sized pieces for my hammers in my army to come down together and smash them. Now, this all sounds easier said than done, and we are currently in a meta where one-drops aren't necessarily that popular, but they're still around. But you want to exist generally somewhere between 3 and infinite drops, which means a lot of players are all of a sudden learning how do you play when you have like 8, 9, 10 drops in your army, and you do it by counterpunching. You will almost always, unless you deploy badly, be made to go first. Even if your opponent has an Alpha Strike army, if you deploy smartly, which we've had in our masterclass videos, if you deploy smartly, your opponent will probably give you the first turn in Age of Sigmar because they want to play for the double turn. A good opponent will do that. Let's start there. Let's get the quality of our opponents. There are going to be times in games where someone's just like, my army has to go first, I need to go first, I'm going first. Oh no, I've lost! That'll happen. That will totally happen. We need to make sure you are not one of those people. So, going more into this. We've already said I don't like Alpha Strike as a playstyle, and Alpha Striking, to define that quickly, is you take first turn, and then you just basically table your opponent, pin them in, you do all your damage right in the beginning, you just kneecap your opponent so hard they can't come back. The reason I don't like that as a strategy you do every time in every game is because it works great until you overestimate how resilient your opponent is. You overestimate how they deploy, and or sorry, you underestimate how they've deployed. You underestimate your opponent. That's the word, underestimate. Not overestimate, because then you just walk all over them. But if you overestimate, you get too confident, you get too cocky. You're like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna go in here, run in, charge all their stuff, and and if I'm on the other side counterpunching, I'm like, yeah, man, come closer. Come to my screens. Come into the range of all my shooting units. Make it so I don't have to move so I get all my bonuses. Or all my extra things. Make it so that I have easier charges into you. Totally. Totally. And this philosophy will counter alpha striking. Because again, an alpha strike army will come in, and if you're set up in such a defensive manner that, if you're given first turn, you move most of your stuff back, you leave only things that you don't care about dying to die, and you scored your max score of points for the turn, be like, you hold 1, you hold 2, you hold more, scored your battle tactic. That is 5 points. And then your opponent comes in and hits your screen of like 3 Aether Wings, and you're down 65 points of your army, and your opponent is right in front of you, in range to get hurt. In fact, you move back a little bit, so you're at a safe distance if they get the turn. You can still redeploy defensively. You've got tricks. You've got things to worry about, to make your opponent worry about. And, you're just like, okay, cool, you killed my Aetherwing unit. You killed my screen of 10 ghouls. You killed my Fellbats. You killed my Noblars in an Ogre army. Oh no, you killed a 100-point unit. I have 1,900 points of my army here. And more likely than not, if you alpha struck me, that means you're away from your buff pieces. You're away from your damage multiplying heroes. You're away from your spells to buff your units. So, if you, the alpha striker, win the priority, right? And, you gave away first turn, you came in here, and you hit screens. You're probably too far away from all the stuff that made your units good, and your buffs fall off. And then if you're the counterpuncher, your opponent came out, made you go first. You barely moved. They came in. Cool. You have a very crucial decision to make here if you win the priority. Do you give away the turn? Where, again, all their buffs fall off, or stay up if you put on defensive buffs. And, your opponent will then try to pin you in your deployment zone. Again, they'll spend more time and energy spreading themselves out to come to you. Or do you take the turn now because they are so out of position anyway, you can just destroy your opponent's hammer units while scoring your points. Because we are counterpunching here. They swung at you. After you set up your defenses, they gave you first turn, you set up your defenses so you didn't die, you scored your max points. They came out, they swung, they went to hit you, didn't really land. If you're in a good enough position, honestly, this is just the position you want to be. If you win the priority, you can choose to give away an early double turn where it just won't matter. That's amazing. That is probably one of the best feelings in Age of Sigmar, because then the moment you get your double turn, you end the game. And why I say that, why I'm putting this emphasis on giving away the turn is, if your opponent then is given the turn or takes the turn, all they're going to hit is your secondary line of screens. Because again, we've seen in these different list videos, I have more than one expendable unit to give up. I do. I did more than one expendable unit to give up. And it's one of those things where if they're only killing that, they're just getting deeper and deeper into my lines and into my trap, where then it's just I immediately, in response, Punch them back. Cool, you've killed 300 points of my army that I didn't care about. Now you have 800. You got a Maw Crusher and like 2 units of 6 pigs in my face. But that means I still have more points in my army immediately in front of your Maw Crusher and 2 units of pigs than you do. Which means I should, if I do it right, be able to kill probably 2/3 of that. Probably the Maw Crusher and a unit of pigs, and seriously wound another. Because you're right here, you're in range of all my spells now. All my damage, all my shooting, all my charging. You're here. I have easy charges to make. So I can leverage my 1,700 points into your 1,000-ish. If they spud up that quickly. And I want to go back to what I was saying where, I'm happy that if I win the roll-off because I went second, I get to choose whether to make my opponent go first and take an early double turn or I go now. There will be times in your games where it's like, no, I want to go now. I'm not giving you the double turn. I'm keeping priority the way we were. You made me go first. I break ties. I could give you the early double turn to again, stretch this out to get a better double turn later. But right now, you already overextended yourself. You tried punching me and you killed a unit of Aether Wings. And then you failed some long bomb charges. And now you're just still so out of position. And I have the ability in the game state here to capitalize. I'm just going to do it. And it's never going to be you always give away the double turn or you always just take priority. Because that's just not how Age of Sigmar works. It's a game where you win in the movement phase and dice don't make sense. You will see crazy things in Warhammer and you're going to go and math hammer out this unit's better than this. You're going to be like, 20 Thralls is better than 3 Sharks, is better than 3 Varangard versus a Maw Crusher fighting twice, having this buff, that buff. Every game will be different. It just will. Even if you're playing the exact same lists against the exact same people, you're playing another human being. They're going to adapt. They're going to choose things. They're going to make all these choices in the world and change their minds. And you're going to play a different scenario at a different time in a different venue on a different day. But if you are playing reactionary, where you're counterpunching, you are seeing the game in front of you, your win condition is whatever the battle plan says it is. Again, usually it's hold 1 objective, hold 2 objectives, hold more than your opponent, score your battle tactic. 5 points. You're going to see the terrain will be different on the table, the objectives are placed differently, but that's generally how a lot of scoring for different battle plans are, with some notable exceptions that I love. But I just listed a whole I'm Italian, I'm talking with my hands, usually they're off camera, but they're up here now. I just listed a whole bunch of different factors of different things, of where the terrain is, where the objectives are, where's your opponent's army, how are they using it, are they using it optimally? We've got all the math, all the buffs, all the things, and they still rolled a bunch of 1s, or they rolled all 6s, and they've got... That is a lot of information to process. So why not let your opponent make the first mistake in identifying all that information? And you just counter whatever they do. You are reactionary to whatever they do. You know what? They think they're going to be able to alpha strike you, make all these charges, and they just fail them and they're right in the middle. Punish them. They think they made some cute little plan with, I don't know, how they screen things, or they thought they were going to try to get a battle tactic, and it's like, no. They put their own faction terrain in the middle of the board and block their own movement because they can't move around it fast enough. All right, cool, great. That screws them, and I can go around there. There's a bunch of impassable terrain that they can't land on, but they can fly over. But you can't land on it, so you set up your army so that they literally can't fit their bases to fight you. But they came up anyway. They got really excited, and then it's like, oh, can't fight me, but I'm a shooting army. I don't care. You know what? Make them make that mistake, and then you exploit it. Be reactionary. Counterpunch. They go for the jab. You go up inside. Get within their reach. They overextended themselves. Spin them around. I don't know. Use whatever metaphor works for you here. There's a lot of them, dear student. Counterpunch. Be reactionary. I'm saying buzzwords, but I'm meaning them. I've played historically a lot of armies with a lot of drops. With my Cities of Sigmar, with my Stormcast, with my Deepkin. Now it's a little lower, but it's still like 3 or 4 drops, and people are still out dropping me. I don't care if I go first, because I built my armies to be able to react to whatever my opponent does. I have pieces and units in my army that, again, I don't care if they die. Hopefully they score me some objectives, and maybe they'll trade out their own points and kill something worth about the same amount. Like a shark is 165 points currently at the making of this video. If it kills, I don't know, 20 free guild guard, it earned its points back, and I'm happy. If it dies after that, great. It already did its job. This is where, when you're playing competitively, your army is your army, and they're your little people, and you painted them up, and they're so beautiful. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's a war game, and their models are going to die. The beauty of it being a war game is you get to set him up on the table the next time, and Jimmy, he survived. It's the story you want to tell. It was a flesh wound. He's okay. He's walking around right now, little Jimmy the guardsman. But, if little Jimmy at the time with his 9 buddies and his free guild guard unit, killed a few Noblars before they went on their way out and scored you an objective, they did their job. Which is great, and then little Jimmy can die again for the rest of the battle and just sit on the sidelines. It's in the dead pile, but, it's trading out. It's at this point, I don't care, because I've got great swords, I've got Phoenix Guard, I've got whatever hammer you want to put in the scenario behind little Jimmy that didn't get touched. And why? Because little Jimmy bought me enough time to see what my opponent is trying to do against my army, and I was able to react to it. He punched me, I punched him back. Counterpunch. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed me pontificating in a little bit of a rant. Yeah, no, that's it. No, this is just a rant. This is just, again, my philosophy on how to play Age of Sigmar. If you like the video, leave a like, comment on something you want me to cover. If you want more ranting about the state of the game or my thoughts or whatever, say that. Thank you for watching. And as I like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye.